This is the first roundtable on the RISE Value Co-Creation Framework, the power of people, policies, and partnerships. If there is one thing that every organization has, and when you have solutions, it's very easy to always say, I have this problem, I have that problem, I don't have this, I don't have that. And yet the solutions are always in our own hands, right? It is always incumbent on us to really make solutions work. And that's why we have the responsible as the RISE value. And when we talk about whether it is organizations, individuals, institutes, corporates, government, right? There is two things that every single one of them have, and that is people and money, right? If we talk about capital, there are four kinds of capital, right? We have financial capital, we have got natural capital, we've got social capital, and we have human capital. And that's why the value co-creation talks on these point of view, and we're going to have it in two parts. As you know, part one today is going to talk about people of power, policies, and partnerships, and the second part will talk about leveraging capital for inclusive procurement and sustainable practices. So to get started really quickly, I am going to first have a round of introduction by my roundtable, and I hope I'm going to have more. We are missing, a couple more that should be coming in soon, and I hope to see them very quickly. But let's go around very quickly. Just your name, your designation, your company or organization, and your location, and one word or one phrase that would explain why you are at this table, either because of your interest or your work. Yeah. So we'll start with Kristina Rai. Kristina, would you like to go first? We'll be leading this as well in just a little bit. So go ahead. Yeah, can we hear you, Kristina? Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
So do you want
to... Yeah, I hope I'm clear. I'm Kristina Rai. I'm from the Asia School of Business. I'm the Chief Operations Officer. The Asia School of Business was set up in 2015. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely. Loud and clear. Please go ahead.
So the Asia School of Business was set up by the Central Bank of Malaysia, together in collaboration with MIT Sloan. And our role is actually to create transformative and principled leaders through education. And that's why I'm here today. I believe in the power of education. Thank you.
Awesome. So Dr. Rajan, if we could have you, please quickly share your details. As you know, we do everything differently from Go ahead. Sorry.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Rajan Ratna. I work in ESCAP sub-regional office in New Delhi, which handles South and Southwest Asia, which covers 10 countries in this part of the region. I'm a deputy head here in the office, and I must thank Karon for giving me this opportunity to hook in and attend this RISE meeting or event. We have been discussing a lot about for last 1 year on various issues, and especially we are implementing a project on women's economic empowerment. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rajan. It's a pleasure having you here with us. Devendra, why don't you go ahead next? Devendra? Devendra, can you hear me? Okay. Devendra, can you hear us? Okay, we'll come back to Devendra, maybe a small technical glitch in that case. So, Kristina, okay, there you are. Devendra, can you quickly just
Are you able to hear me?
Very quickly.
I can hear you, but are you able to hear me?
Yes, yes. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you
Okay,
are,
so
Devender. Please
good
go
morning,
ahead.
everyone. Thank you, Karan, for inviting me to this fabulous platform. I'm Devender Nahar. I am working in GAIL India Limited, New Delhi, as a Deputy General Manager. Am I not audible? Uh,
Yes, we can hear you,
Not
Devender.
audible?
Please go ahead.
Not very clear. It's breaking.
Am I audible?
Yeah, Devender, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, okay. So I'll introduce myself again. I'm Devender Nahar. Yeah, yeah. So I'm Devender Nahar. I work as a Deputy General Manager in GAIL India New Delhi. My core areas of interest are energy policy, advocacy, reforms, energy innovation, and marketing, corporate strategy. I have put in about 23 years of work in the industry in natural gas and LNG primarily, wherein I've been associated with a whole lot of areas in my company. Uh, 2, 3 areas which I'm passionate about is, for example, energy policy and how energy policy can bring about energy outcomes, positive energy outcomes for people and provide greater access to energy to the people. So that, in brief, is my introduction.
Great, great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Devender. And of course, we have Naresh with us, who's going to be helping me co-moderate. Naresh, please come in.
Thank you, Karon. There seems to be a slight lag with the internet. I'm trying to keep my video off just to preserve that. So good morning, everybody. Name is Naresh Karmalkar. I'm happy to be co-moderator with Karon for this. Yeah, so I've actually spent about 30 years in the social sector, initially as an activist on a whole lot of issues, and then actually getting into the formal NGO sector. Spent 22 years with the International Housing and Sanitation NGO Habitat for Humanity. I've also consulted with a number of NGOs on a variety of topics. Also got introduced to the whole world of entrepreneurship through the BNI network. I headed the Mumbai West region for them with more than around 2,000 entrepreneurs, and learned a lot from that as well. And currently I'm in the process of setting up 2 startups myself, one in the social sector and one in the whole area of sales and creating a whole sales force for startups and SMEs. And why I'm here, of course, one is Karon dragged me into this, but jokes apart, truly this is something which has been a passion for me. How do you actually marry this? How do you marry policies, people, partnerships? And nothing gives me greater pleasure than having people partner together to create lasting and exciting social change. Glad to be with all of you. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very much, Naresh. And I'm sorry I'm dragging you in, but that's a lie. So always happy to be with us. He's been, co-hosting and co-moderating with me for the last 10 years. So you can imagine, right? Thank you for your knowledge that you bring to this table. And of course, we're looking forward to this conversation. Just to get started, I'm going to request Kristina to really put some of her thoughts to begin with, and then we will get into to set a context to this, coming from such a rich background and rich experience. And then, of course, we will get started into the conversation itself. Yeah. So, Kristina, may I please request you to take us ahead, please?
Sure. Thank you so much. So I love the topic that you've chosen in terms of people, policies, and partnerships. And I'm a big believer of partnerships. I believe no one can make it by themselves. Great leaders, great organizations, great civilizations are built on the combination and a blending of people's energies, visions, attempts to change as well as to transcend. And partnerships, for example, in terms of even where I am today, representative of the Asia School of Business, which, as I mentioned earlier, is a collaboration between the Central Bank of Malaysia and MIT Sloan. Why? Because in the case of central banking, we realize finance is a very knowledge-intensive business, and we want to create the auxiliary ripples of not just in banking and finance, but also across industries that support it. And innovation is one of the biggest contributors. Finance, as we see today, with a combination of technology, again, it brings to force how we blend things, how we blend technology, how we blend entrepreneurship, how we blend the great levels of strengths people have. And that comes into the area of policies. How do governments set policies? How do the private sector build their own business strategies, combine it together, and as always is unleashed by people, the power of people and talent. And today we're standing at the cusp of a new change. Hundreds of years ago, when the locomotive and the horse had a race and the horse lost, that was the start of the great industrial revolution. And how societies, families, women, children, men all corral themselves and divided a division of labor to meet the demands of that industrial revolution. Today we have technological revolution, knowledge economy. We moved past the wisdom economy. And I believe we're now at the cusp of a blended economy where we harness the power of technology and don't be afraid of it. We live in artificialness. We have artificial light that helps us live beyond the norms of sunset. It creates opportunities and challenges and problems and great progress. I understand today big data, robotics, artificial intelligence, but all of that brings us back to the many levels of intelligence we have. Gardner wrote many years ago about how there's 7 levels of types of intelligence, not levels, types of intelligence. Being mathematical, having linguistics is just one part. There are also other forms of intelligence. How you look at space, how you move your body, how you look at nature. These are many other facets. And I believe that when we unleash and let artificial intelligence do the tasks that bore us, then we can unleash the great creativity, the great opportunities that we have to work together on a much higher plane. And so that's why I believe we're in a blended economy, a blended civilization, and where we have to harness people, policies, and partnerships. Darwin always talked about the survival of the fittest. Well, he only mentioned that a couple of times in his thesis. What he mentioned more and more about in the origins of species was how species that thrive and surmount are those that cooperate. Because at the end of the day, we're all we're antennas for each other. We change and adapt depending on the messages that we get, the chemicals that we pass on to each other in our thoughts and in our energies. That helps us to adapt. How do we move from artificial intelligence? Well, I believe in authenticity. The AI for me is authentic intent. And this is where I think we let the artificialness take on the roles that we can do less of. And how do we harness? How do we raise people's opportunities to transcend? And that's where I come back to education. Education is the greatest leveler. It is the greatest universal, the most democratic approach to lifting everyone. And the opportunities towards education must be one that everyone feels that they can access. It shouldn't be something for the elite. It shouldn't be divided by whether you have the means or not. It should be, if you have the intent and you want to grow and you have a growth mindset, opportunities should come your way. So in a nutshell, I believe in augmented partnerships. I don't believe in David and Goliath. I believe in the ant and the elephants. I believe that an organization that thinks, or a nation that thinks that it can do on its own is doomed the way of the dinosaur. I think we have to, if you can imagine, pin many small and medium and big things together. You can imagine the picture of a networked individual. That's how we should transcend the chemicals, the energies, to help us harness great and small endeavors. And this is where innovation comes in. It's about encouraging each other. And it's no surprise that the word encourage, root word is courage. to help someone move ahead bravely. And I want us to encourage each other, innovate. There will be costs and risks associated with innovation, usually stability. Usually there are people who fall, their collateral damage. Let's try and reduce that. We know that what we have today is going to change us as a society, as a civilization. What we must be aware of are the social impact of what these changes bring. And again, when we inject education, access to reskill, upskill, to look beyond yourselves and harness the differences, that's how, to me, education plays a role, whether at AFP or others. So I hope that we can call of action should be towards greater innovation. Thank you, Karan.
That's a great call to action. Thank you so much, Kristina. I think you've already set the stage for us to get rolling. But before I start, Jahnvi, you're back. We couldn't see you. Can you please do introduce yourself really fast, and we will get on to the questions from that one. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So my name is Jahnvi, and I am the director at the Institute of Social Studies Trust. This is a 40-year-old organization based out of Delhi. We primarily do work on very action-oriented research that looks at issues of women and work, right from the paid work, unpaid work, care work, looking at the various movements that have taken place to continuously establish that a lot of the work that women do is just not counted. There's a lot of women who work in the informal sector. So that's the space that we largely occupy. And for the last 20 years, we also have a small urban center in East Delhi where we work with children and youth from underprivileged communities, offering them a safe space, learning center, guidance. A lot of young girls have broken out there into a lot of non-traditional, options of work and livelihood. So yeah, that's what we do.
Thanks so much, Jahnvi. And as those of you may have heard in the opening plenary, that's exactly what the UNRC spoke about, saying that women development is going to be key to any kind of global transformation, economic transformation. So thank you for touching on that already, Jahnvi, because that is going to be a critical part. So that's it. Let's get started. And, very quickly, as I said again, at the Rise on Summit, we don't really have a panel. It's more like with the no Q&A, so there's no specific question that's addressed to a single panelist. It's really open for anybody to talk, because all of these are thought leaders who are doing some excellent work on the ground, and we really want to get to understand how we are going to be able to go deeper and understand and discuss rather than just share, beyond sharing, right? So in the Rise One Summit, the way the roundtable work is that, and I'm going to go over this really quickly, is that we first talk about what are the challenges in the room, what are the things that we are grappling with, what are the things that we really are looking for solutions to, right? So what are those? And that is in the room. We, of course, the world, there are many problems and we can't solve all the problems, but we definitely can make sure that we can try and find some headway by talking to people in this room. So that's really the first part. Then we move to the capabilities part, where we talk about what are those solutions, right? If at all these are the challenges, what are the solutions? And yes, we can definitely talk beyond the room when we talk about solutions, because we can bring others in to help each other out. So that's the second part. And last but not the least, we want to have collaboration. We want to have partnership, right? And the topic is anyway partnership, but that's exactly what we want as an outcome. It could be really simple. It could be really easy. It does not all have to be about funding, and we will find ways. Yeah. So I've just given you the whole guardrail so that it keeps you thinking how to kind of keep the conversation moving. And with that, I'm really going to get started. Are there challenges in this room? I'm sure. Right? So, Thank you, Naresh. What would I do without you? So thank you very much for sharing. And yes, keep the chat busy for sure. Keep the questions coming in as well. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, what are these challenges that we are facing right now on the ground when we are trying to implement our programs, when we are starting to, we all talk about partnership, right? We all talk about partnership, but partnerships are only possible when we have the right kind of policies in place. And who makes those policies? It is people, right? So how do we get the kind of value-based leadership we need to design the right kind of policies so that we can build really fruitful partnerships? Any thoughts and challenges to make that happen? Any thoughts? Yes, Jahnvi, go ahead.
So for me, I think when we talk about partnerships, the other term we also use is collaboration. And I'd like to draw upon what was said in the morning opening plenary, which was that where do we find the alignment in purpose? I think that is kind of very critical. And but I just want to check: am I audible to everybody? Because when Mr. Karmarkar was speaking, I couldn't hear him, so I'm not sure whether if I'm audible to people.
Yes,
Yeah,
we can
Jahnvi.
clearly hear you. Anyone? Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Okay,
Go
fine,
ahead,
fine.
Jahnvi. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, fine, fine. No, because I missed Mr. Karmakar when he was speaking. I could only hear you. I couldn't hear him. So I just wanted to confirm. Yeah. So for me, I think the critical part is purpose. That how do you find as collaborators a common purpose, and when you are able to find that, there is the starting of collaboration. But I think the biggest challenge there is how do you deal with the power, because when you're collaborating, each of us has some power and each of us has some say vulnerabilities. And are we able to be honest and safely speak about that? Because in a collaboration, if somebody is bringing in money and the other is not, very often money becomes the more influencing power and therefore the more powerful collaborator. So I feel that is something that one must be cognizant and figure out how are you going to deal with that. So that's my one bit
Excellent.
about
I
what is
think,
required
Jahnvi,
and what is the challenge.
that is such a big problem. And I think it's all about, creating the right kind of trust, mutual respect and trust, which is not there when we look at this hierarchical model of donors, implementers, and then grassroots NGOs, and we need to change that. But that's a topic that's something we've created a framework for, and I'll be happy to talk about it later on. I would love to hear what other challenges are there in the room, and keep this one as well, which is absolutely a very, very real one. I also want to very quickly bring in Precious, who has joined us from Nigeria, got up really early to be on this call. Precious, we thank you so much, okay, for giving us your time and trying to join us at such a difficult time. So, Precious, if you can very quickly introduce yourself and also why are you on this roundtable, please. Yes. Go ahead, Precious. Can you unmute and go ahead? Yeah. No, we can't hear you. I'm sorry. Can you just try one more time? No. No. Precious, may I ask you to maybe otherwise log in one more time? I'm not sure why, but we're not able to hear you. Sorry. Okay. Hopefully, Precious will be back very soon, and we will. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? I
Yes.
turned off my video. It needs to be okay. Great.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, I think video bandwidths are bad. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I'm Precious Akanonu, National Economist, UNDP Nigeria. We, as UNDP, we work on development issues relevant. Of course, my office, country office is Nigeria, Abuja based, that's the capital city. And we work on a lot of development issues, working with our biggest partner, the government of Nigeria, and at both federal and subnational level, working on various development issues such as poverty, the climate and environment, and of course the governance issues as well. So I'm happy to be on the call today to discuss some of the power of people, policies, and partnership that we've experienced along our work. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Precious, and we're looking forward to hearing from you for sure. So we've got our first challenge, which is about the inequality structures, that exist in partnership. As Jahnvi spoke about the power and the vulnerability, I really like the two parts of it. Incidentally, you must watch the TED Talk that says the power of vulnerability. The power of vulnerability. Do check that one out. It is definitely a very interesting contrast to what we are talking of right now, but it's a real problem that you brought up, Jahnvi, so thank you very much. Any other challenges that someone can think about, whether it is related to people, which is at leadership level, whether it is with policies, or then of course it is with partnership?
Hi, may I? Karon?
Yes, please, just come in. Just come in, yeah.
Thank you. So one of the things that's a big challenge, and we all know, is about discrimination, and we want greater inclusion. But this discrimination also in terms of how men and women operate within an organization or in policy making. And I'd like to highlight a very interesting research by the IMF in 2018, where they studied women economists and men economists and the kind of policies prescribed. And lo and behold, there are differences between how a woman economist and a man economist would come up with specific policies. For example, statistically, women economists and men differ in terms of core economic principles and methodology, whether they agreed on market solutions versus government intervention. Women economists were more inclined for government intervention compared to men. Government spending, taxation, and redistribution. And one thing which was very significant was that women economists tended to veer towards environmental protection compared to men economists. And this actually colors, at the end of the day, the second area, your theme is in terms of policies. And we need to actually bring to the table, I talked earlier about blending the strengths of both men and women in organizations and policymaking and partnership. We have so much that we can share and complement each other. And we need to raise the voices of everyone at the table. So I think the fact that environmental protection and how many male economists would spend more for military spending compared to women economists who wouldn't and would want to see more intervention in the environment. As we know today, climate change, we can come up with a vaccine for the kind of pandemics we face, but there is no vaccine for climate change. And this is where we need to harness the power and potential of men and women coming together, whether they're scientists, policymakers, environmentalists, economists, geologists, people on the streets, SMEs. We have to find ways, and I think this is the one that will break the barriers when we start moving in that direction for greater balance in gender, in policy, partnership, and in people. Thank you.
Great. Yes, and I think that's again another thing, right? Discrimination in gender definitely brings about a lot of imbalance, and then, of course, also does not relate, which means you need to have better policies, right? At the end of the day, if you want to stop that discrimination. So, thanks for bringing that up, Kristina. It is a very important challenge for us to look at. Great. Any other challenges someone would like to share with us?
Hi, am I audible, Karon?
Yes, yes. Oh, yes.
I'm keeping my video. I'm keeping my video on off. I think because of bandwidth issues. So I
Sure,
would bring a completely different challenge on the table today. See, I primarily come from the energy and environment sectors, and as we know, energy is the lifeblood of any economy. Without energy, without supply of clean and affordable energy, no social or economic growth is possible. Now, the challenge is India is not at all well endowed with fossil fuels, which comprise of the large majority, almost 80% of India's energy supply basket. To give a context to the problem, in 21-22, financial year 21-22, India imported of the order of around $160 billion of crude oil and petroleum products in a single year. Our import dependency for crude oil is about 85%. We meet our requirements to the extent of 85% of imports in crude oil and almost 50% in natural gas. Now, on the one hand, there is requirement of energy. On the other hand, we are not endowed with energy. So what do we have? One important resource that we in India have is people. We are the second most populous country and about to be the most populous country probably in a year or two. Now, that leads to an attendant and abundant problem of waste generation. Both solid as well as liquid waste. And we all know, all of us who are living in around Delhi, we know how municipal solid waste has accumulated lakhs and lakhs of tons in the Ghazipur landfill facility. Now, I'll just give two examples of where people or businesses have come together with policymakers to forge new partnerships and provide new solutions in the energy and environment areas. So, the challenge, the municipal solid waste that I was talking about, waste. Now, we have people, we have lots of generation of waste. Here came biogas. Now, biogas to the rescue. Now, biogas is methane, primarily methane, which is produced by anaerobic digestion of any type of organic waste. But municipal solid waste is not very amenable to digestion because waste is not segregated in India at source level, and there are all kinds of organic, inorganic, metallic, and other wastes, including plastics, etc., which are not amenable to degradation and production of energy. So, the first example that I'm referring to is the example of BBMP, the Bangalore Brihan Mumbai Palike, the Bangalore municipality, which came out with very stringent as well as enabling framework for waste management a few years ago. Now, here is a policymaker who became proactive and came out with certain policies, and that led to several startups in and around Bangalore, which set up waste management companies wherein people were paid to segregate waste at the source and provide their waste to waste collectors. So, it completely spurred a startup economy when small, medium, and micro enterprises they began doing this job. In the process,
I'm going to come in here because I think you put the challenge really great, but you also giving us a solution right away.
Right. So I'm coming to the solution. I'm coming to the solution.
No. So I'm saying let's hold the solution for just a bit. We just want to collect a few challenges and then look to talk on solutions. Yeah.
Sure,
so just hold that thought right there, and we will come back to those solutions that you get. But of course, any problem that fuels entrepreneurship is the best thing possible, right? Because you're meeting two birds with one stone, and we'll talk about it when we talk about the capabilities and the solutions to these problems. Yeah.
Sure.
So thank you for sharing that.
I think let me add one more challenge here in that case, if you are asking for putting challenges on the table, which is very connected and intertwined with the earlier one that I talked about. So we all live in NCR, and every year around winters, around 200, for example, in the state of Punjab, paddy is farmed, and every year around winters, almost 200 lakh tons of paddy waste gets collected as stubble and is burned, which not only creates problems for the entire northern region in terms of air quality, but also local environmental pollution and problem of climate change. So I will not talk about the solution, but there has been a very innovative approach in dealing with both of these problems which I mentioned, and which we will cover later during our discussions.
Excellent. Absolutely, absolutely. And we will wait to hear that solutions as well, because we want innovations and solutions to take us forward. Great. Precious, you had something to add as well to the challenges?
Yes, I do. So I wanted to highlight the power of partnerships. So strong partnerships are vital for value co-creation. So you have to be able to identify the key partners and to move the agenda of the shared purpose forward. So I just want to quickly run through our experience with the work we do on the INFF, the Integrated National Financing Framework. It's a global initiative that was developed to help developing countries coordinate their finances and be able to better channel it to the SDGs. So with the INFF, of course, Nigeria is a pioneering country in terms of implementing this INFF, and achieving this required strong partnership with the key stakeholders that ensured that the program or the initiative moved a step further beyond being on the table as an idea. And so we partnered with, of course, the key partner, the government, who are the major implementing partner for this. We also partnered with World Bank, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, the EU, which was more of our financing partner. We also partnered with so many key agencies within the government. We partnered with a lot of MDAs, the ministries, department, and agencies, and that was quite critical in ensuring that the program does not just sit as a UNDP program or just as a Ministry of Finance program, but it's involved so many partners and ensure that the project moved from just initiation to actual implementation. So the INFF for Nigeria has been completed, and we're now in the implementing phase, and that's a major milestone in terms of all the countries that have been expected to implement the INFF. So we actually highlight the strong power of partnerships, working particularly with the World Bank and the IMF, and enlarge the partners, the partners and the shared value creation for the project, and ensure that it's carried forward by other partners aside the UNDP. And now it sits on the government as government initiative.
Precious, if I may come in just a little bit very quickly. As I said, we're discussing what are the challenges. So, while the initiative is obviously of great value and is a huge milestone, as you said, what have been some of the challenges to make it happen, make it operational, make it really a viable long-term solution, right, that you're doing? So what have been some of the challenges in that? Could maybe, if you can share something from that, would be really awesome.
Okay. First, with the partnership, of course, there's challenges in trying to get the idea become a shared idea, and for the many partners involved, of course, there are a lot of challenges in getting these key partners not just interested in it, but also move it as their own idea and move it forward as not just in finances, but also in other aspects of technical assistance and other aspects of support. So getting that breakthrough in terms of ownership for the idea by the government and by other key partners is one of the major challenges that we experience, and we found ways to address it. Yeah. Okay.
Excellent. I think the problem you brought up of ownership and what Jahnvi spoke about earlier in terms of how do you really build a mutually open, transparent and trustful relationship, I think it's really built around the ownership, right? If there is ownership, then there will be respect. But otherwise, it's very difficult. So we'd love to hear what has been the solution and how you have made that happen for sure. And also, hopefully I will have some time to maybe share a little bit about our PICO model that really talks about the relationships between the different kind of partners and how you build ownership. The O in PICO is the ownership piece. So we'll come back to that really quickly. Any other challenges that any? Yeah? Dr. Rajan, would you like to come in? You are doing a lot of work as well.
I was about to raise my hand. Yes.
Great.
We have been working now. It's 3 years working with various governments, civil society organizations, women associations in implementing our project on empowering women economically, especially from the MSME sector, in how they can expand their business, become part of a global or a regional supply chain, and using e-commerce, digital marketing, etc., as a tool for promoting their business or existing business. Now, one of the the overarching objective, and in this particular project, when we are implementing, we have been interacting with various government agencies within the country. We have to interact with 2 or 3 different ministries or departments. Then we have to also several agencies who are either the civil society or women associations or chambers, as well as some of the regional ones. And there the challenge comes is, the different silos which are there within the structure of the government. So when you are talking about economic empowerment of a women, there are certain trade policies which come into as an impediment. There are various financial transactions related regulations which come into power, and then there is a Ministry of Women and Child Development which also is looking into women economic empowerment. And in case of India, you will find for that there are various schemes implemented by different ministries. So Women and Child Ministry is implementing, MSME is implementing, there is the other ministries who are also bringing in some of the dimensions, and then now there is a Nari Shakti Abhiyan which has been announced by Honorable Prime Minister of India, and there are a lot of things which are happening in this. Coming back to the women associations, often, or the chambers also, they have their own mandate. Objectively, in principle, they all agree, but sometimes I found, pragmatically, I won't name, but it was very difficult to bring different stakeholders on one platform to come and discuss. So how do you build these kind of partnerships when different agencies on the same issue or the same theme within the country are working differently? And it took a lot of effort, wastage of money, manpower, and resources in duplicating the efforts. And it happens everywhere in many of the countries where we are working in. So while we do understand, and I totally support what has been said and these issues, but indeed, ground realities and the challenges of doing certain things collectively in terms of building partnership and delivering is often an impediment. It comes.
Right. Thank you. Great, thank you. I think I want us to move now to the capabilities, but I really want us to think a little bit more on the fact that we are all focusing on the partnership piece, right? But the truth is that partnerships are built on policies, and policies are defined and determined by people. What is lacking, and this is a challenge I am now throwing here, what is lacking at the leadership level, right, that will make them walk the talk, which will make them commit, to the right kind of policies that will influence then the partnerships that we bring together. And I think this is really, really important to think about, because we talk about value-based leadership, but we don't really see that. And one of the challenges perhaps, and maybe I would love to hear your answers on this as we move into the capabilities, is that, is it because people and leaders especially are looking at short-term gains to present to stakeholders rather than looking at long-term needs and outcomes that will be really sustainable? I think a lot of policies are not adequately drafted and definitely not implemented because of this huge challenge that happens to be. And as I said, we'll start moving into the capabilities, and I'd love to hear what are your thoughts. And I feel if the policies are right, then all the challenges that have been just now put on the table, would at least start getting some traction for us to move towards more solid and more fruitful partnerships. Yeah. So please mull over that as I ask Devender to come in to talk about one more challenge that he has, and then hopefully we will move into the capability section. Yeah. Devender, over to you.
Thank you, Karan, for that opportunity once again. You see, the world over, there is a movement towards sustainable lifestyles and green living. And year before last, the Prime Minister at COP26 gave a slogan of lifestyle for environment, that is life, in short. Now in India, there is a big challenge so far. In fact, until 2012, there was a big void for Indian citizens to know and estimate their impact on the environment in terms of a credible and reliable carbon footprint. And what you cannot measure, you cannot control or mitigate. Now, even now, though there are certain carbon estimation or carbon calculator tools available, but it's not easy for consumers to know, to act, and to make behavioral changes, or to make consumption or purchase changes in their day-to-day lives, or basically to live a green life. And that, I believe, is a significant challenge for us to carve out a green and a healthy growth trajectory for India as we grow forward. Yeah.
Thank you, Devender. Yes, that is also something that we need in terms of how we can change mindsets. And I think Kritika has brought that up very nicely by saying it's usually an us versus them mentality that blocks us from really taking the right and that's putting in place the right kind of policies and then moving towards more fruitful partnership. Also, I got Isha over here who has also spoken about how it is, while we may get policies, sometimes we don't understand them, right? And that's again another problem with policies. That's another challenge that we need to think about. How do we really make it in such a way that it is really simple for citizens to understand how does it impact them? How can it be actually played out? What is the role it's going to play in their lives, in the economy, and what are the factors? And, these are really big issues that, again, policymakers need to keep in mind before they actually put policies in place. So thank you, Isha, for bringing that out. I think that was a great point to bring it in itself. So let's move to the capabilities. I think we have spent enough time on challenges. So if there are any thoughts, how do we solve these problems? Solve the problem of respect? How do we solve the problem of inequalities? How do we solve the problem of lack of willpower to take tough decisions and implement solutions that are long-term based? How do we create value-based leadership so that we walk the talk? Over to all of you. Yes.
Could I go, Karon?
Absolutely. Please don't wait for me. Come in.
Yeah. No. So I think great points made by Kristina and by Naresh and Devender that there are a lot of the time the solutions are actually from the people. Are much more embedded in the location where the solution are coming from. And there is, of course, a role for technology. There is, of course, a role for money. No doubt about that. So for me, I think the way to really address the question that you are raising is that, how do you make policy more effective? How do you make policy makers look at? So I would say there are a couple of things. One is that we need to have a culture of looking back and reflecting. And this, I would say, goes from the very individual, personal, daily reflections that each of us must do about, how did I do my day today? What was my day's learning today? What did I learn? What could I have done differently? Where could I have, been better, or that was a good idea that I had? So reflecting right from the personal level to the level at teams, to level at organization, and then, of course, at the policymaker and the national level. I think we do not spend enough time doing very serious reflections. And for that, you need sound data, you need sound evidence, you need good quality evaluations, and of course, it has to be based in the whole value of, what am I about? What am I trying to achieve? Am I here to make the world a better place? Or am I here to only look at my own individual personal gain? So I think that really is a given, that if you are here to make a difference, to make a better world, then I think your reflection becomes that much more sharp, and you should have the tools that enable your reflection, and then you should have the power to convert the reflections into actions as you would go forward. This is a very simplistic way of saying it in a very short time. I know it's complex, but just I feel reflecting on things that have happened and using different lenses to look at it, whether now it is the DEI lens or whether it's a gender lens. I think using those lenses to look at your reality and reinterpret and therefore redesign your actions is very important way to connect, as you were saying, policy and practice and what we are learning.
Hi, may I come in as well? Jahnvi, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's it cuts to the source and the soul of leadership and organizations today, how we organize ourselves. And I'd like to share one thing that we've missed as we move from agrarian to industrial to now a more institutionalized way of working through organizations spread across the world, is we've lost the power of storytelling. You talked about reflection. And I think we've got today 4 generations working in any organization, if not living at home. When you leave your home, you go into a workforce where there's so many different generations and variations of people and experiences. And it's always puzzled me how in life we're taught values through stories. Whatever faith or belief you have, when you go back to how you were when you were a child, as you're growing up, even as you age, it's actually stories, fables that sort of drive home the value. And culture in an organization, people have you spoke earlier about vulnerability. People have stopped sharing sometimes the risks they took, the vulnerabilities they had of themselves, the failures, and stories are something that we should bring into the organizational setup and share. I'll just share a very short story. Many years ago, I had an incredible boss who shared in a leadership, how shall I say, fireside chat about how when he was confronted with a big assignment, and when the team presented, the top management of the day, said that's not what we expected, and his whole sense of ego and confidence was shattered. You're talking about an incredibly bright, talented person that I admire till today. And as he was relating that story of how he felt when that assignment did not meet the mark, he lifted his hand and he said, "As I'm telling you this, my hands are shaking." And that touched me because, number one, he shared a story that was very deeply personal to tell us youngsters, when when you fall, get up and do it again, because he related when they represented it, that was it. And we're talking about, you know, something big in terms of policy in our country and all that. Fast forward a few years later, I had a terrible presentation to my top management. I made mistakes, and it was crushing. He called us into the room and he said, I'd like to give feedback. And then he gave feedback to myself, my boss, and my colleague. And he said, just Kristina now. And I thought, I'm going to get it now. Oh my God, you know. But he didn't scold me. He was so kind. He said, what's going on? You know, I don't expect this of you. What can I do to support you? And it brought tears to my eyes. I was very shaken myself. I gave him my word I would transcend this. 6 months later, I presented again to top management, and it went well. But when he came and said, he patted me on my back and said, well done. The fact that he shared many years ago when he was crushed, and when he tried to understand why I had failed fast, and that you did okay. That's the story and the linking many years later. And we cannot lose the power of storytelling in organizations to drive culture, values, leadership, to inspire people, especially when things are hard, especially when you want people to go towards a vision only you can dream of. So absolutely, I believe this is where we can change. Thank you.
Great point. I think great point, both Jahnvi and Kristina. I think it's the culture of an organization that helps create the right kind of policies, and vice versa, you know, and vice versa, which means if you have good value-based leadership at the top, you will create a proper culture that allows people to thrive, because your policies are so positive, you know, in terms of, it's not a hire and fire, it's not about this. And I think what Jahnvi also brought up on the other side of it is, one is, you know, having the right culture, but also having the right accountability. As she mentioned, speaking about quality evaluation, right? If we are not accountable for what we're doing, then policies have no meaning, right? We are not able to create that situation where we know what we're doing. And also, as you said, if we don't measure, I think Devender also mentioned that if we don't measure what we're doing, we're definitely not going to manage and monitor it, right? So I think these are great ideas. And of course, one thing that I really liked from hearing all of you is that this kind of a format is required, where we talk openly to each other and not just talk about, you know, how great we are, what great work we are doing, but talk about challenges, talk about failures, bring it up, because that's the only way we're going to learn and do the right thing and find better solutions and innovations moving forward. So thank you very much. And of course, yes, please take this format to your own organizations, your own events. This is exactly what we've been advocating for the last 9 years. Panels and presentations serve a purpose, but does not help build collaboration. So thank you very much for helping me give that solution in this part of our conversation. So any other solutions and thoughts in terms of how can we build capacities, create the right kind of solutions that will meet the challenges that we spoke about earlier? Would be really great to hear from some more of you. Yeah, please come in. Yeah, go ahead, Precious. Please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I don't have a story to share, but I'll just run through some of the policies, how policies and partnerships, capacity, people, and community can play a role in shaping better policies. So in generally, to create better policies, you need the commitment. The people involved have to desire it and want this to happen. But then you also need the capacity. So those to create the policies and implement it need the right capacity to be able to ensure that the policies created are sustainable, are not are inclusive, are not like having an opportunity cost against other policies in place, and also like sustainable and equitable. So that requires the right capacity by the policymakers, and of course the capital is important. Just like the value co-creation framework you have, the capital is very important in ensuring that the right policies are created. You need to be able to maybe create the use the capital to fund the capacity, like building initiative or trainings. You need the capital to ensure that the policies pass through the right legal to fund the things needed to create the policies, like in terms of the legal structures and framework and the rest. And also the community of people, the beneficiaries, those that will benefit or be affected or impacted by these policies, of course, need to be involved in the process. So the whole architecture of the value creation co-creation framework is important in terms of shaping the right policies. And that is how UNDP is also doing its work in terms of its supporting and providing capital financial assistance to support government, where we work like the government of Nigeria to be able to create the right policies, also in terms of the technical assistance, which is vital in shaping and strengthening the capacities of the key stakeholders to be able to push for the right policies. And also, of course, we support with the community and the consumers, which I would say like the policymakers, those that need to have ownership for the policies and push it through. We provide all this support, and I think these are critical for ensuring that policies are sustainable, inclusive, and make the impact they're designed to make. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Precious. Absolutely, we do need those kind of partnerships and bring people together with the right kind of terms and conditions that allow everybody to get a win-win proposition, right? Because that's what we want in a partnership. You cannot expect to have a win-lose partnership. It's not going to last, right? So thank you very much for pointing those things out as well. I've put out a poll over here because I believe that policies start with leadership. That's the way to get the right policies in place. But we may not always get the right buy-in that we want from our leaders to make those policies work or make those policies even committed on paper, because sometimes we say a lot of things but don't do it. And so is there a problem, is there a gap at the leadership level for us to get the right responsible policies that we want to implement? So please take the poll, and yeah, I'd love to hear from all of you. If possible. So do take the poll, and we'll come back to it in a bit, right? While I've not published. Okay. No, it's published. It's published. Yeah. Please take the poll, and then we'll close it in a little bit, but we'll continue the conversations as the poll is happening. Yeah. So we've been talking about some of the solutions. Yeah. Talking about open cultures, talking about the right kind of partners to be selected. But how do you select these partners? That's again another challenge, isn't it? How do you select the right partners? So any thoughts? I mean, because like Jahnvi said, it shouldn't be just about money, right? It shouldn't be just about money. It's also about a lot of other resources that you need in kind to make any partnership work. So what are those kind of issues we face to kind of get the right kind of partnership? How do we identify the right partners? Anybody wants to share their thoughts on this? Please come in. And yes, please keep filling in the poll. I can see that I've got some answers. Love to have many more. Please do come in.
Hi, Karan. This is a very important question, and I thought I will share some of our experiences. It's really a two-pointer which you said, and I agree. One, importance of partnership and importance in selecting the right partner. And it's not about money, because if you are really looking for money, or if you are a kind of a donor with a lot of money, there will be a lot of people who will want the partnership.
That's a vendor partnership.
We all are vendors in one way or the other. Even UN doesn't have its own budget. We look for donors to give us the budget, right? Or the women association with whom we are working, we pay them for organizing the meeting or other things. And many a times we have to pay for even for those 3-day, even the 7-day for their staff, because they will say, oh, they were busy in doing this invitation, etc. But I'm not looking at that. But I mean, I was talking about that brings the money part. And if you have money, a lot of people will come. But what is important in developing partnership is a prior understanding or looking at their work of any agency and what has been their track record. Many of the agencies with whom we in ESCAP as a UN agency we have been working, some of them are really dedicated, and they're not looking for money per se or a project per se, but their overall objective and the goal and their credibility is worth. I can go beyond our women economic entrepreneurship, but we also have a network which is a SANS, we call it, which is a South Asia. Now it's becoming South and Southwest Asia network of SDG. But this is a network of think tanks. So various think tanks, premier institutions of research organizations, they have come under one umbrella and they found this SANS. And we have certain criteria. We look for those who apply, we discuss, we look at their credibility, we look at their work, what kind of work they have done in past, or just they are interested in using a platform for partnership or uplifting their organization's image. And therefore, depending on the thematic work which you are doing, having somebody who is specialized, working for years in that area, dedicated, and either in that country or in that state or in that particular region is also important. Like even in India, we have been working with various women associations. Different states they are working, and we found some states, because they are very active, we have been able to reach out to 1,000 women entrepreneurs coming from micro, small, and medium enterprises in one state. Whereas in the other state, with the same effort, with the same time, we could reach out only to 100. So, you need to look into the area where you are working into. You need to look into the theme which you are working into, and whether the partner has certain good background into that is very important. Thank you.
Excellent point. I think Rajan, you said it right. You need to research and know your partner, right? You need to understand your partner. And that is where the value co-creation piece of this comes in, the RISE value co-creation. If you don't share the same values, and I'm not talking about the economic value, as you rightly pointed out, it's not about the money. It's what are the value systems that you share, and how are you creating value for each other through a win-win proposition? I think that's the best way to tackle the problem of unequal partnerships that Jahnvi spoke about earlier, as also about having better partnerships and longer term solid foundational partnerships. So thank you very much for sharing that, Rajan. I think that was absolutely spot on. Jahnvi, you want to come in?
Yeah, I just wanted to come in, and I fully agree with what has been said, and as you summarized it, that it is about the purpose which has to be beyond propagating my own organization, and there's a belief in the idea for which I'm willing to share, go back a step if required, take 2 steps forward, and learn to be vulnerable, and yet together be stronger. But I feel one of the important things is also how do we treat partnerships, because I find that very often our legal language is such that it will allow you, if you were to write down or make an agreement, it will come down to say often calling people as consultants or people as vendors, and then you just feel that is the language, and you may say that let's go by the spirit of stuff. But there is a difference between the way very often our country's legal setup restricts us from calling out collaborations, partnerships. There is no framework in which this can thrive. And I think one of the things about which we need to link between policy and say people and collaborations is to actually push for policies that believe that collaborations are powerful, and what kind of frameworks that need to happen if they have to thrive. Because if you say we are partners, but in your agreement you say, you are like a grantee or you are a vendor, those kind of terms actually diminish the sense with which you come together to make something happen. And I'm not just talking about donor relationships. I'm also talking about, lateral relationships. In fact, in India, it is becoming more and more difficult to forge these kind of collaborations because of certain kinds of legal restrictions that have come in. So I think there is a role in marrying policy that promotes collaboration per se, partnerships per se, especially in the social sector. I'll just say that.
So true that is in terms of the language of policies. I think that in itself scares to put things on paper, because the minute you do that, people will automatically feel that, no, you know what, but this should not mean like this, the interpretation, and of course then the consequences. So I think that is such a valid point, Jahnvi. Thank you for sharing that. Our Girija says co-creation involves acceptance of diversity of approaches while the fundamental beliefs remain the same. So true, Girija. And thank you so much for joining us, of course, and sharing your inputs. Girija has been our co-committee member in the past and also been with us this year. So thank you very much for bringing that in. And true, it is, our values come from where? Our values come from the belief systems we have, right? And that's what really drives us to create the right kind of policies that will help us to obviously build this. So thanks, Jahnvi, for bringing that up. So we are moving now towards the latter part of the session. Did you all even realize that we have spent 1.5 hours chatting? I think that should come up as a poll right now, isn't it? We just didn't realize it. And that's the beauty, right? Because sorry, did someone want to say something?
The time that we took in discussions with each other is a compliment to your ability to moderate and put together the entire session and all the speakers from such diverse backgrounds.
No, Devender, I was not looking for a compliment, but thank you all the same. Yeah. So I think, as we move on, I think that's really what we're looking for, right? To share thoughts and ideas that will help us to go back and implement them, or at least explore them and see how does that apply to our organizations. How is it that we can create better policies, be more responsible in our policies, so that we can attract the right kind of people? And that's what the value co-creation framework says, where responsible policies will get you responsible consumers, which means consumers as in not just customers, but consumers as in employees, which is an example that Kristina gave earlier. Getting the right employees, getting the right vendors, which is what Rajan spoke about, getting the right partners, right? And this is when you start that, you move towards what we use as the RISE value again, is ecosystem-friendly partnerships. And when you do an ecosystem-friendly partnership, you start building the right kind of communities around you as an organization that will either help you to thrive or in bad situations help you to survive. So I think this is where hopefully we'll start linking our conversation to what does the RISE value co-creation framework really help us deal. Because Jahnvi was also talking earlier that we don't have the right kind of framework, and that's what we are hoping, that this RISE value co-creation framework will be one such kind of framework solution that will help businesses, organizations, institutes develop the right kind of pathways to transforming their culture, which again is something we touched on, and therefore lead to more better business growth and long-term sustainability. So thank you for bringing those points up and really helping me to link it and get better ideas to strengthen our own framework as well. So thank you. So let's go to the last part, right? In terms of collaboration, what are the collaboration opportunities that are there in this room? And please, even those who are listening to us, please come in and give us your ideas, give us your thoughts. in terms of what is the kind of collaboration that you're looking at and seeking for, or you need a gap area where you think you could do with, either knowledge resources, or it could be done with in-kind resources that are looking. And a very important point that Rajan made, which I also want to point, is you can take same interventions to different geographies, or you can go to the same geography with different kinds of interventions. Partnerships are built on those kind of insightful understanding that you do not need to compete. There are many ways to work together and collaborate. So with that, I hope I can get some ideas from all of you to look at collaborative opportunities that we can do. And this can be directly related to your own interventions. It should, because that's what we want, that you go away from here. The takeaway should be that you have found someone with whom you could potentially partner, or who can be potentially exchange something with you in terms of resources, knowledge resources, networks, information, and that's also very, very valuable. So yeah, opening the floor up again, please go ahead. Nobody needs anything? Any thoughts on what can you perhaps take from here? Yes, Jahnvi, please come in.
Yeah, I thought that what Kristina said. I think she's left the group because of another engagement. But I think what we need to invest, and I personally definitely have always, whenever I've come across those who say storytelling is so important, I've always found that very powerful. And yet I don't think I'm a very great storyteller. I can when it comes to connecting my experience and with others. So I think that's something that is very powerful. And I think what she's doing in her own organization, I would really love to know more, and see how one can collaborate and bring value to what she is doing and the kind of work we are doing. Because in the field of business, we need to really look at the informal sector women and what they are doing. As was said, I think earlier, and everybody recognizes leave no one behind, but it's such a huge task when you have almost 85% of your women workforce in the informal sector, and that I think is such a huge task that we have. And so when we talk about frameworks of including people and communities, I think we really need to have a gender disaggregated view of everything, that where is it that we are leaving women behind, whether it is in capital deployment, whether it is in innovations, whether it is in communities. I think everywhere there is such a strong invisibilization of women. So I would look for, so I'm happy to collaborate with her, and I'd also look for collaborations that where we can bring our experience to bear, where we've also developed tools for evaluation. In fact, we're running a masterclass in your summit, so thank you for that. But yeah, I think there has to be more recognition and more bringing to the table what has remained invisible. Yeah,
absolutely. And Jahnvi, thank you for organizing that masterclass. I hope many people will definitely attend that masterclass. It will be of great value, because monitoring and evaluation is the key to ensuring accountability, transparency, and then finally, of course, charting a way forward. So thank you, Jahnvi, for that. Rajan, do you want to come in?
Yeah, one of these.
Jahnvi's thoughts as well on storytelling, and we should find someone. And Jahnvi, maybe we can help, because during the summit there are quite a few storytellers who are going to be there. So do look out for them. Great.
Sure.
Sorry, Rajan, over to you, please.
No, it's fine. I just wanted to compliment Jahnvi that she said it rightly. The takeaway from such platforms are two ways takeaways. One which you can contribute to, but at the same time, more important, which I see, is learn. And some of the sharing of knowledges and experiences, and some of the views are very, very important for all of us. And this also is a platform for networking and partnerships. So while we are talking about, the policies, we are talking about how to effectively build partnership. This is also one such takeaway from here where we can look for possible partners for future, see who is doing what kind of work. Often the challenge in this which many of us we face is lack of having an information on who is working at a grassroots already, digging deep into various areas of our interest or areas where we are looking in. So this such kind of these platforms are really wonderful and useful for those opportunities. Thank you. Karon herself has got disconnected. Karon?
Oh, thank you for noticing that.
I think Precious and Devender is here, so if you have anything,
yeah,
maybe you can chip in while the time Karon will join.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'll personally like to just congratulate the team for organizing such great free-flowing discussion. And personally, on a personal level, I actually like to learn more about storytelling, human-centered storytelling, beyond just specialist or technical discussions, but human-centered storytelling. If I like to learn more around that, it would be great in actually knowing how to tell the stories that actually connect to people and touch hearts, and that way you can pass on more information and be able to connect to people to drive better change. Thank you.
Thanks, Precious. True, and I think you put it very well that free-flowing conversations are necessary for us to go deeper, and understand things from within rather than just what is kind of put out in a nice presentation. So yes, thank you for pointing that out. I think one of the things that Gurija and also what Isha is writing on the chat, which is really interesting, is that policies come and go, but policy monitoring and evaluation doesn't happen very often, which is also very true, because you can make policies and after that, just forget about it. But if you do not, do on a regular basis, a review mechanism is not put in place, then those policies also can become very redundant. So I think there is a need to kind of look at that as well, right? Kritika says there are no competitors, only collaborators. I wish that was true, Kritika, but in today's day and world, people unfortunately do not always think like that. And I know you definitely believe in that, and that's why you're our partners. But yes, we need to promote more of collaborations and by understanding the synergy. So thank you again for pointing that out, and makes a lot more sense to come. Devender, do you want to come in maybe and share some thoughts on collaboration and how those have been some of the solutions that you were talking about a little earlier?
Yeah, I think one very specific opportunity which I would like to share experience and opportunity which I would like to share for collaboration with this panel as well as the audience. I was sharing earlier about the need for individual citizens and the civil society at large to be able to live green, to buy green, to consume green, and to be able to practice green living in the day-to-day life. So just sharing a brief background, way back in 2012, I created India's first certified carbon calculator called as YouGreen. And I lent it to a few social organizations who used it with various residents in housing societies and school children. And based on the feedback, just now in January 2023, I have completed what is India's first consumption-based carbon calculator, which is titled as Carbon Shunya. Now, what this calculator will do or can do, where I'm seeking possible partnerships, is it will allow every or any citizen to assess the carbon footprint associated with every rupee of purchase made at any online or card-driven platform. Now, this initiative is entirely in a volunteering and in a personal capacity, and this is, I believe, facilitated by the policy background of the government coming out with the Energy Conservation Amendment Act 2022, which facilitates the path towards net zero by various organizations working together. Probably the partnership that would that may help us to propagate the idea of green living, the concept of lifestyle for environment, is if any entities, any NGOs would want to expose their audiences, their employees or their customers to the idea of lifestyle for green living through Carbon Shunya or any other available tools, I would be more than happy to facilitate that. So that is one. The second thing, now this is a different observation on some of the challenges that we discussed earlier and which were brought on the table. And as Karan rightly pointed out earlier, policies create that fertile riverbed which leads to innovation, which leads to people coming out with designing and innovating to launch solutions. And that is where, when I spoke about the Bangalore municipality coming out with policies and enabling framework for waste management, or let us say Punjab government or the petroleum ministry here in Delhi coming out with policies to enable at least partially prevention of burning of paddy straw in Haryana and Punjab. And I think part of the reason that we did not witness a very severe problem this year probably was because at least 20 to 30% of the paddy straw was channelized for biogas production. So I think on those two thoughts, I will conclude my comments. And I would really welcome if any of the attendees or participants here would like to use Carbon Shunya for championing the cause of green living. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Devender. I think Punjab is a big issue. We all know about that, and the more solutions we can find or more insights we can get that can help us design better solutions around those problems, I think will go a long way, definitely, in making those things happen, right? I very quickly want to maybe throw open another thought before we because we are moving towards the end of the conversation, is that, when we talk about responsible policies, we talk about responsible consumers. When we talk about ecosystem-friendly partnership, we talk about ecosystem-friendly communities, right? But in between these two pathways, there are the two other RISE values, which is the inclusive and the sustainable, right? How do you really transition from responsible to being, because responsible is more at an individual level, more about your own organization, about yourself, right? Vis-a-vis the external world, of course, but at the end of the day, it's about you. While ecosystem is really about the external world and how you relate to them, right? And what do you do with that? So for you to transition this, you really need to look at the whole inclusion piece, which also we discussed. And then, of course, the second part is the sustainability piece, which also we touched on very briefly. And this is what we are going to discuss in part 2, which will happen on the 2nd of February at the same time as this. So I hope that many of you who are listening here will join us even on that discussion point. But just to kind of, close the loop, so to speak, of these pathways of transformation, anyone has some thoughts about how these will get linked up? The policies, the procurement, which is something I think Jahnvi touched on to talk about how non-traditional livelihoods can be built if we bring in the right people. And then, of course, as I said, sustainable practices leading to obviously ecosystem-friendly partnerships. So how do we invest to build capacities to make all this happen? Any thoughts on that? How can we encourage more investments? And again, it should not necessarily be about money, but we can obviously look at capacity building in other ways. So any thoughts, answers, solutions, and opportunity to collaborate, of course. Precious, you had spoken about collaboration, about capacity building earlier and how that was a major success point of your partnership. Share some of your thoughts over here. Precious, can you hear me? Or Jahnvi, would you like to?
No, I think I've kind of said it previously also. I think that these conversations are important, and how do we say, look at policy studying, and I think if organizations are open, maybe before we ask the government to become more transparent. In a way, government policies are always there, but the policy making process is not known, although we have standard procedures of the parliamentary committee and so on. I think maybe if organizations can share stories of how they have made shifts in their policies, like today, I think we had in the plenary she talking about policies of General Motors, and then she mentioned TCS. But I think there are, even in the Indian context, where our industries have made shifts, and even the NGO sector, how organizations have become, or perhaps in many organizations, most NGOs that I knew of that were existing, say, since the 70s and 80s, never had the luxury of having an HR person, because it's too costly to have that. You did a lot of the stuff because you believed in it, and so you had these policies in NGOs long ago that, okay, who's willing to work, let's come on. If you believe in this, you're from the community, come and work. If you're from the city, you're willing to let go of your privileges and you want to work, come and work. I think some of these things have existed in NGOs, but we've never perhaps documented that well enough, and therefore we feel that we need to constantly learn only from the corporate sector. But the corporate sector, I feel, has a different value system when it comes to the profit making leg of corporate sector, the social responsibility sector, the side. I think, what can it learn from the rich experiences of NGOs, and where the collaborations can be made without having a truly an open sense of learning across? What can we learn from one another? I think those are, I would say, important collaborations that must happen and must continue to leverage. As you're saying, that at the end of the day, we are in one world. We are not a social world and a corporate world. We are one world. So yeah, I feel that those could be elements that we need to learn from one another.
Great. Hope to see more opportunities of that collaboration, of learning from each other, because knowledge is a huge resource by itself, right? Just understanding from other people's experience and other people's practices, I think would save you the trouble of not going through that learning curve. So I think, yes, it definitely makes a very, very big difference. Thank you very much for this. Okay. Precious, are you back? Will you be able, do you want to share something?
Oh, yes, sorry, network issues. So it was around capacity building, right? For us, so the way we've built capacity in, has been around, well, I come from a policy background, so I share a lot of experiences from policy perspective. So the way we've done this is around providing technical assistance to the key stakeholders that are involved in the process of that policy change. Well, after identifying what the issues are and the gaps, Then we provide the technical assistance in terms of like it comes in various ways, lessons learned, like case studies. So there's of course the research aspect, the case study aspect, the even sometimes study tour to gather experience from where this is already being implemented, sharing experiences from other country policymakers implementing similar trying to achieve similar policy change, also providing maybe in-house technical experience, technical experts that comes in to support, and also local, of course, the local experience, also meeting with the beneficiaries from the grassroots to ensure that they have all that is required to build the necessary capacity needed for that such policy change. Over. Was that clear? I hope I wasn't cut off. Hello? Hello, Karon? Hello, Karon?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hello, oh, yes. Did you get
can you hear me?
what I said? Oh, okay. Yes.
Yes. So I did miss a little bit, but I'm thinking what you're saying is, understanding the beneficiary, okay, or understanding the affected population, I think is really, really critical for us to be able to also put the right policies in place. And very often, need assessment, we spoke about monitoring and evaluation earlier. I don't think need assessments are done so much from a point of view of the affected population point of view, as much as it is from the objectives of the donor or the funder. I think that really is where we come from. So I think designing programs, understanding your population, target population is so critical. So thank you for sharing that, Precious. I really appreciated this. So we are coming to the end of our round table, and I have had a wonderful time. 2 hours pass away, I mean, absolutely without us realizing. Many people tell me 2 hours for a panel is too long. I'm like, it's not a panel, and you'll not realize it. People don't believe it, but you can see how quickly the time has gone past. Right? So, any last thoughts before we have the closing address, which Dr. Rajan has very graciously agreed to do? Summarize what we've been talking. So, any last words, any last thoughts from anybody? Please come in quickly. Also on the chat, if anybody would like to share any last thoughts or questions, please do share that. Absolutely looking forward to that. No? Okay. I think we've done well to be so far. So, Rajan, may I then request you to please close the session with a summary of what we have today learned, understood, and of course, take away.
Thank you, Karon. It's indeed one thing which personally is very enriching for me from this RISE meeting. Summary of the entire proceeding of almost around 2 hours is very, very difficult. We discussed quite a diversified topic, covering perhaps everything, starting from the people to discussing about the policies and then the partnerships and what Jahnvi talked about, the storytelling and how do we build up from there. But definitely there are many takeaways which we all can take from here and learn from each other. And some of them have been the real experience sharing of all of the people in the panel who spoke, the comments which have come in the general chat, as well as in the panel chat, flagging certain issues and experiences, looking into the various dimensions that have been dealt with, our own perception on partnership, how government policies work in silos, what needs to be done, what kind of either the partnership or the stakeholder consultations are required in policy making, what are the challenges and why the policies do not achieve 100% of what they aim. So these are these issues which are ground realities, and therefore, despite the fact that all these are our processes, partnership is a process, formulating the policy is a process, but bringing it to the right people, seeing that the people benefit from these interventions, whatever is the objective relating to upliftment of the people or overall development is met, are some of the goals which, because of certain gaps, either in terms of policies or in terms of their implementation, or building true partnerships, or working or duplicating efforts for the same cause and not optical utilization of the resources, are some of these issues which are really impediments in any kind of work, whether it is civil society doing, or a government is doing, or UN organization or international organizations are working on. These are the challenges which everybody faces on a day-to-day basis. And of course, the last, perhaps we could have deliberated more upon them, but we could not in maybe another session. When we talk about, and the title is Power of the People, how people can contribute into these policy making, how people can force right partnerships to be built in, how they can have their voices heard in the entire process, is also one of the challenges or issues which need to be deliberated upon and discussed more in terms of the overarching theme, or even the SDG theme is about leaving no one behind. But when you talk about leaving no one behind, you need to know who is where and who is actually behind, so that you put more effort and whether their voices are being heard. Most of the people, or most of the sector, or most of such category of the people are voiceless, faceless. So while we are working and we take all the pride and gaga of what we have been doing, what we have achieved, we don't visualize them because they are non-powerful actors of the society. So that is perhaps what also we all need to work on. I wish we could have deliberated more on those, or some of the experiences that have been shared about what good practices were followed in this regard. But the very valuable some of these interventions, and I'm not going to repeat them. It's very difficult to summarize the diversified topic which we talked about. Everybody experiences. So that is all I have to say. Thank you.
Well, you said it was difficult, but you did a brilliant job of it, Rajan. So thank you so much for doing this honors for us. I really appreciate it completely. We've come to the end. Actually, it's almost just another couple of minutes. So I think I'm going to end with, firstly, a very big thank you to all our experts sitting here. As you can see, we don't call you panelists, we don't call you speakers, because you are actually there out there practicing every single thing that you're talking over here. So for us, you are our experts. Yeah. So I hope we can have some nice round of applause for our speakers. I think really thank you for your time and energy that you put into this. We look forward to some outcomes from this, definitely not just this session, but the whole summit itself. There is so much happening. There are the workshops, the tours, the chat tables, the whole all-day exhibitions. We've got, an innovation hub, resource bank. So there is a lot that is happening. Please do explore and check it out. And we hope that you make most of this opportunity, and we keep collaborating, keep talking, and keep finding our way for a better world.